And joining me now with his take on today's shooting and the investigation is former Deputy Assistant Director of the FBI, Danny Coulson. Danny, thanks for being here tonight. Now, look, one of the things that, people obviously go to when they hear about things like this is they think about whether or not this could happen to me. I mean, obviously there is empathy, there is sympathy, but I think human nature is such that, could this thing happen to me? So when the president says, as he said today, if the Pittsburgh synagogue had an armed guard, results would have been, quote, far better. Do you agree or disagree with that?
Oh, ma'am, I totally agree with that. Armed security is important, but maybe more important is training for the people that were there. And I think they had some. If you heard the reporter, he talked about some of the people barricaded, and that's what we teach in our classes, barricade or get out. And you need to get ready. When you go to the movie theater, where do you sit? How do you get out of the theater? When you go to a restaurant, that's not being paranoid, that's being prepared. And I do agree with the president. Armed security can stop these things if they're well trained and committed to their jobs.
Well, what's interesting about this is that this clearly was not a guy, as I spoke about in the first hour of the show, who was insane because he was lucid. He made it clear what his intent was, what he planned to do, and that he was going in. But even more significant is the fact that, he wasn't into getting shot by police. And so, the fact is that when he got into a gunfight, he was the coward who ran in to protect himself. I guess the question that I was trying to ask earlier is, in the private sector, whether you go to church or whether you're at a job, I mean, does business have an obligation to tell its employees what to do, whether it's a synagogue, a religion, an ethnic, religious, sexual, or just a lunatic nut job? This can happen anywhere in America.
There's no doubt about that. It happens in schools, it happens in churches, it happens at movie theaters, it happens at concerts. I think you're familiar with that. So I think we all have, as employers, we have a duty to tell our people, how do we live through these things? It's basic. We furnish them with insurance policies in some cases. Well, let's furnish them with training. How do we live through these things? And remember, police are only minutes away. They did a great job responding.
Oh, they were fabulous. Yeah.
Fabulous, but seconds matter, and that's really important. You can do a lot of carnage in 10, 15, 30, 20 seconds, and you're better off having somebody in defending you than having somebody coming to defend you. You want to have your security right there with you.
Yeah. All right. And let's talk about the fact that this guy was a licensed gun owner, apparently had long guns also. But other than, this blog that I find very disconcerting. I mean, everybody said he's a quiet guy. You know it and I know it. We did this for years. He's always a nice guy, always kept to himself, always said hello, whatever. And, then there's a mass murderer. But what he said on that blog, that he was tired of the, HIAS, Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, bringing in the immigrants, and that he was going to, take care of it. He's going to take care of everyone. I'm going in. What are we going to do about that kind of stuff when it makes it on social media? I mean, the First Amendment protects that speech, correct?
Absolutely. He is protected by the First Amendment, and the FBI can only investigate things that the AG guidelines allows them to investigate, and that's very, very restrictive. So that's not actionable intelligence. That's rhetoric, and rhetoric is not against the law, even if it's anti-Semitic rhetoric. It's legal. Fortunately, it's legal, but there's consequences to that. So we have to be prepared to take care of ourselves. It's very important that we're ready and we're prepared, and we also have an obligation to each other, to protect each other. And I think that's something that we really need to think about.
Interesting. Gives us a lot to think about. Danny Coulson, thanks so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you, ma'am. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.